astrology forecast for September. I've got my notes ready, I've got some water, I've got a tarot deck and an oracle deck. So we will pull some cards as well. If you're here, let me know that you can hear me and see me. Just so that I know that I'm not here. Oh, hello. So yes, we're going to be talking the astrology of September. There's some interesting things coming up. There's kind of like three main things that we need to kind of be aware of to be prepared. As always, I've made a blog post to go along with this as well, which actually breaks down like blow by blow, going through all of the different transits and things through the whole month. And that also has some mini forecasts for each of the signs as well, for each of the rising signs. But you can read them for your sun or moon if you don't know your rising sign as well. It still will be pertinent. So I've put a link to that in the description box if you want to go and read. Sorry, my chair is getting on my nerves. If you want to go and read that blog as well, then it kind of is an accompaniment to this video, so they'll be good companions together. Also, if you're interested in astrology in general, which I'm assuming you are if you're watching this, then I do send out an email every Monday with like the transits for that week and some suggestions, well, kind of like a brief interpretation and then some suggestions of how you can work with those transits as well. So that's called Moonday Magic Mail. I thought I was very clever coming up with that. But yeah, you can sign up for that. The link for that is in the description box as well. I can just see some people coming in. So hi. Nice to see you. Okay, so should we start talking about September? It feels like, I know we were talking about this over in the Discord. We've got a community Discord for this channel, which I don't think I have linked actually in the description box. So if somebody who is here wants to maybe drop a link in the chat, then please do that. Although I think most of the people I can see already know about the Discord. But if you don't, you're welcome to come and join us. There's a specific channel in there to talk about astrology. There's quite a lot of people who are interested in astrology there in the Discord as well. So yeah, it's a really nice space. We were talking over there about how this year seems to have like just gone so quickly, and kind of Shannon, who's here, called it brisk. And that is such a good description for 2024. It's like being fast and also like a little bit rough, you know, like I feel like it's like, you know, when you have something like a beautiful statue or something, if you're carving something out of wood and like it's kind of a little bit rough first of all, and then you use like the rough grit sandpaper to smooth it. So sometimes when we have like rough things, they can actually be helpful to like make something smooth. I don't know if that metaphor is landing for you at all, but that's how I feel like this year 2024 is a strength year. It does 20 and 2024, tripping over my words. Mercury is retrograde still at the moment. It has got that strength card energy. So we are being asked to kind of like stand up and kind of be more of ourselves, and that can be a little bit chafing because we necessarily like take up a bit more space, and we are just a little bit more, you know, because we don't get a dress rehearsal for life, do we? We just turn up and we learn as we go along, and so inevitably we like make mistakes and things, and like we can try and guard against that, and like especially if you've had sort of childhood trauma and things like that, it can make us even more guarded. Like we try not to make mistakes, we're so kind of careful, but even when we do that we still make mistakes. So like this year has been more about just kind of leaning into just realizing that we are going to make mistakes, and that is part of the learning process. It's a really important part of the learning process, so we've got to just like lean into that and embrace the mistakes and just kind of own it really. And yeah, I feel like that is part of the chafing, the sanding down that is happening to us now, as we're becoming a more polished version of ourselves. And the only way we can do that is if we do not worry so much about our sharp edges and let the energy kind of buff us into that version of ourselves that we are becoming now. Yeah. Brisk like a Minnesota winter. Yeah, and that's when you said brisk, that is like that idea of brisk, like a brisk wind, you know, the sort of wind that kind of chaps your face, you know, where you can feel it. Like it's a very physical sensation, and this year the passage of time in this year has felt like a very physical sensation. So yeah. Oh, Katie Jane, yeah, it says sea glass. Yes, that is another really great metaphor as well for this year, you know. So like we get the sort of sharp jagged sea glass, and it goes into the sea and it gets like ground up against all the sand, and then it gets to this whole like smooth out beautiful, even though it's like that wasn't what his intended purpose was, but it's just so beautiful, and it catches the light, and we can like, yeah, collect them, find those little, it's a treasure. Then it becomes a treasure, and that is what we're doing in our lives. You know, we can't stay small and safe and careful. We need to get knocked around a bit, you know, in the sea or sanded by the briskness of the strength here, to just become the treasure that we are, you know, that we already are inside ourselves. So people chatting about their commonplace books, that is lovely. That's another thing we've been chatting about over in the Discord as well, is like whether we should have one journal to rule them all, or whether it's better to have different journals for different things. And honestly, there's just like no right answer. So a commonplace book is one of those kind of like, it's a really good one to bridge the gap when you're not sure, because like, you know, that just everything goes in there, you know, it's a common place book, you know, so you can put all those things in there. So yeah, that's kind of fun. That was one of the things that we've been chatting about in Discord. But yeah, let's talk about September astrology. So I have got in front of me, I've got my honeycomb planner and my new one, because mine runs September to September. I don't know if you're feeling those Virgo vibes, but as soon as the sun just dropped into Virgo, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I'm getting prepared for the rest of the year. I'm getting my journals out, getting my planners ready, and doing more journaling and everything straight away. So yeah, it feels really, really good to be doing this. I'm thinking about doing, I'm going to be making my annual now journal review video, and I've got like a little stack forming over there on my altar, on my kind of like big working Welsh dresser altar to go through. I don't know when I'm going to do that video, in the next few weeks probably. So I'm still waiting on a couple of things to arrive as well. But yeah, I've got my honeycomb. So I'm going to be looking at the transits on here, but like I'm not going to go through every single one. The blog post is a better place for that, because it's just better. Like, you know, I feel like you can't really take it in this medium sometimes when there's like going through each the sort of details of those things. So the blog post will be great for that. But I do want to talk about the kind of overarching themes of this month, and also pull some cards as well to go along with it, because sometimes like I just love that combination when we start layering in the like tarot, divination, goddess work in with astrology. It becomes more real, you know, it becomes more representative of what it's like to be living in this world, which is not just like we have one simple path to figure things out, you know. So the major themes of 2024 of September, and the main thing I think for me is that it is very much setting the tone really for the entire rest of the year. And that's because there are a few ingresses, a few planets moving into different signs that are going to be like hanging around in those areas. So one of the major things is that Pluto, which has been it was in Capricorn since 2008, came into Aquarius at the beginning of this year. And now in September, it's going to be making one last little dip into Capricorn, and it's going to be staying there until November. So we've got that last little like few months of unfinished business that is going on with that kind of Pluto energy, which that Pluto and Capricorn energy has been since 2008. So, you know, that's a big chunk of time. So like we can think about when we're talking about outer planets, we're always talking about these like kind of bigger chunks of time, you know. That's why we call them kind of like generational planets, and they tend to sort of have more of a like almost like a background effect, but background's not really the right description for it. It's more like a kind of, it is a generational effect. So, you know, like when people talk about different generations of people and how certain generations have got certain characteristics and things like that, they do, like, you can see how when Pluto is in Capricorn, that is a very different vibe from Pluto in Aquarius. And we've had this little introduction to Pluto in Aquarius now at the beginning of this year, and it's already been like stirring up, what I've noticed is been stirring up those kind of like, Aquarius is very much about like paradigms, like thought forms, ideologies, and Pluto, that planet of like death and rebirth, going into Aquarius, has been dismantling and allowing for more kind of creativity, yes, death, and sometimes also as well, like Pluto is very much entrenched with power as well, so we've seen a lot of like pushback against forward thinking ideology as well, and we'll continue to see that with Pluto in Aquarius. But then when we think of Pluto in Capricorn, which, like I said, has been since 2008. It's been much more about, like, Capricorn is cardinal earth, it's a cardinal earth sign. So it's much more about like resources and achievement in that kind of like American dream sense, you know, like you know, having the outer markers of success, reaching your goals, you know, very much more like kind of physical goal orientated. So like, I've got X amount of money, or I've got this particular status symbol, and like I said, Pluto already is in sort of involved in those kind of like power. It's a very like power games, power structure kind of planet as well. So the whole time that Pluto's been in Capricorn, it's been very much about like kind of accumulating wealth for some people, and obviously that kind of divide between rich and poor. Capitalism, you know, is a very like Pluto and Capricorn. Like obviously capitalism has been around for a lot longer than Pluto has been in Capricorn. We're talking since 2008, but it is like that idea of like kind of hoarding resources and things like that, which we have also seen like a lot of shake up in those areas, like prices of things. I don't know what it's like globally, but I think this is something that has been something that is global, is that like prices of like fuel and energy and things like that have been, and that's not just the Pluto and Capricorn thing, that is to do with Uranus and Taurus as well, which we'll talk about a little bit, because that's one of the other big things that is happening in September. But yeah, that idea of like the ways of doing things. Capricorn's also kind of like conservative as well, because it is that, got that earthy energy, whereas Aquarius, even though it can be kind of stubborn, and I know we've got some Aquariuses here, is more like, it's an air sign. So like, even though it's fixed air, it's still got that kind of it's got more flexibility than Capricorn often has, you know. So Pluto and Capricorn has been about kind of like the grind and like the hustle and accumulating the wealth, accumulating the resources, trying to kind of get safe, reaching your goals in that kind of like exterior goal kind of way, not so much about like sort of personal inner goals, or about those kind of humanitarian goals that I feel like we will see that shift of in when we have Pluto in Aquarius. So like, think about that whole period of time from 2008, and like thinking, I'm sort of talking in a kind of mundane astrology way now, when we're looking at like I say, that kind of generational effect. So we can look back like from 2008 to 2024 and sort of see how the world in general has kind of like panned out. But we can also look at it for ourselves personally and sort of think like, what was happening for me like in 2008, and how have things changed in terms of perhaps my physical health, perhaps my my amount of resources that I've got, perhaps my relationship to how I think about those resources, things like that. Have we been having like kind of death and rebirth moments in those areas of our lives? And also, you know, like if you know your own chart, you can layer this stuff in a house level as well. So you can think about, okay, where is Capricorn in my chart? You know, what is that? What is the relevance of that to me? And like, if you don't know what it is in your own chart, that's fine, you know, you can leave that layer out. But if you do, you know, it does really help. And yeah, on that note, actually, I am going to be teaching an astrology course in October. I've put the link to find some more information about that as well, where we're going to be going through your natal chart and kind of all of the details of your natal chart, and really sort of diving into like the natal chart as a blueprint for our lives. I really do believe that it is like, it's that map that we want, you know, it's our instruction manual that we did come in with. When everyone says you don't get born with an instruction manual, it's not really, I suppose, not an instruction manual, but it is a blueprint, it is a map. So yeah, if you're interested, then you can find more information about that down below as well. But yeah, if you can layer in that extra piece of information, it helps. And so what is the significance then of Pluto just kind of dropping back into Capricorn for a few months? It's like that last chance to kind of like tie up loose ends in that area of our lives that kind of Pluto and Capricorn has represented. So yeah, you know, you kind of have to kind of thinking about, what does that mean for you personally? And perhaps you already know, and perhaps you know, it'll take a little bit of thinking about. You can look back from 2008 till now and sort of see. And like sometimes, like I find with these kind of like longer, slower transits as well, then it doesn't always become like, sometimes that last dip back in when a planet does that, it gives you insight into like, oh, that was what that whole thing was about anyway, you know? You can see that kind of bigger cycle as it gets resolved, you can see what it was all about. You know, it's like when if you're like watching a mystery movie or something, and like you get to that point where it's like, oh, I understand now, I know who did it. You know, is you get that clarity sometimes in that last. So be ready for that happening in September, but also, like I say, in October, November as well. So that's that kind of like longer. And that is one of the reasons why September is like setting us up really for the end of the year, and even into 2025 as well. There's some things that are happening in September, in this month now, that are going to kind of set the tone to go right into the beginning of next year as well. Yeah. Oh, hi, Michelle. Yes, talking about Pluto going back into Capricorn, and how that is really kind of like it's one of the markers that is sort of suggesting that this period of time, this month, is setting up the whole vibe really for the rest of the year. Yeah, like I said, it is in November. It does go direct again, and we'll go back into Aquarius, and then it'll be in Aquarius, you know, for like the next 20 years, and it won't come back to Capricorn in our lifetimes, because it takes like over 250 years for Pluto to go all the way around the zodiac. So, you know, that is the only, this is our last Pluto and Capricorn experience that we are going to have. So that's significant in itself, you know. That's why it's interesting to look at the outer planets as well, you know, because like I say, certain generations of people will experience them in certain places, and other generations don't have that, you know. So hey, Lisa. So yes, the Pluto retrograde into Capricorn, and the other bit that goes with that idea of like the patterns that we've been in for quite a long time now, is that Uranus, which is in Taurus and has been in Taurus for quite a long time. If you know, let me know. I seem to have like a mental blank on it. I think maybe because it's Uranus, it's like it just doesn't want to like settle down in my brain of when that is. But it's been a long time. Uranus has been in Taurus, another earth sign, but this time a fixed earth sign, for a long time. And it's been going direct, and now in September it has been going, oh yeah, 2018, thanks Liz. I couldn't remember if it was like 2018 or even 2016. It's like, it seems like it's been a really long time already, and that is because the nature of Uranus and the nature of Taurus are just so like incongruous together. They're so at odds with each other, because Uranus is like sudden change and like let's just like burn it all down, throw it all away, you know, or like a lightning bolt of inspiration kind of thing. Whereas Taurus is fixed earth, so it's like conserve things and protect things. It's a really sort of like gorgeous, sacred, safe, calm energy, solid energy. And so like we've got that kind of solid earth of Taurus, and then we've got this like crazy amazing energy of Uranus. And like when these two things come together, it's an uncomfortable energy. So Uranus going through Taurus, and like I said, that links in as well with the things we've been seeing, like disruptions in energy prices, disruptions in food supply as well, you know, things like that. Also disputes about land, you know, when we think of Taurus as being that fixed earth, you know, like obviously the land doesn't belong to humans anyway, but you know, through our history, our actually kind of written history that we know, humans have fought over land, and we've seen a lot of that happening with Uranus and Taurus. So Uranus is fairly close to the end of Taurus now, but it is going to be retrograding, and it starts in September. Let me give you the exact date for that actually, because that'll be interesting. On the very first day at 27 degrees of Taurus, so it's quite close to the end. For me, I feel like this has been a very personally significant transit as well, like when we layer in our own personal charts in with this as well, because it is very, very close to my natal moon. My moon is in Taurus at 29 degrees, so you know, this Uranus transit is like going there, and it's stopped now for a little bit, and then it's gonna be going back over it as well. Liz, on your rising, yeah, on rising and Chiron. So you know, it's a huge transformational and personally transformational and healing, hopefully, you know, but usually there's a bit of wounding that needs to be kind of acknowledged before that healing can happen. Yeah. But like I find with Uranus transits, even though they're really uncomfortable, they are really amazingly transformational, and perhaps not like the Pluto transits are more painful in some ways. Like Uranus has that kind of lightness to it as well that somehow makes it, well, I don't know, maybe that's just a personal thing as well, because I've got that more kind of like air placements and things like that, so it makes me feel more resonant with that Uranus energy maybe, although Pluto is really close to my ascendant, so I feel like I know that energy really well as well. Yeah, sorry, Emily. Uranus is in Taurus, has been since 2018, but it is going to be going retrograde now in Taurus. And when a planet stations retrograde, which quite a few of the planets are at the moment, it's not like, it's kind of a little bit like a tarot reversal, you know? So like when we have a tarot card and we get a reverse card, it doesn't mean the opposite of what that card is, you know? It's more nuanced than that. But when a planet is retrograde, it doesn't express its energy directly. So like it's different for every planet, you know? So like when we have Mars direct, it's very direct. When we get a retrograde Mars, especially like in certain signs where it's uncomfortable, then it can be like, instead of being aggressive, it's kind of like passive aggressive, you know? So Uranus direct is all about kind of like bold change, sudden change. Uranus retrograde doesn't mean that it's going to be like suddenly become conservative and stuff. That's not going to happen. It's going to be more like surprising, Uranus is a really hard one to predict how it's going to pan out, because it is Uranus, you know, and the nature of that planet is unpredictable. And when it becomes retrograde, it doesn't suddenly become predictable. That is kind of the point I'm trying to make. So it's still going to be doing surprising things, but because it is retrograde, it's going to be more about, you know, well, it's, like I say, it's hard to say. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be more about, but I wonder if like sometimes the energy being less direct is good, you know, like it kind of buffers it a little bit in a way, but it also makes it kind of haphazard, you know. So like if we think of like of lightning, like kind of taking the quickest form, or electricity kind of taking the easiest route to make contact with the ground, you know, when we've got, and that's Uranus direct, when we've got Uranus retrograde, I kind of feel it's more like, you know, like if electricity was kind of to shoot up but then couldn't find its path to the ground, and ends up like kind of bouncing off different surfaces or something, and like you could get caught in like a kind of a random haphazard like electrical strike or something. This is not a great metaphor for this, but I'm trying to think of a way of describing what like a Uranus retrograde energy might look like. Expect the unexpected. Yeah. Oh, hey, Candy's Room Closet, nice to see you. Yeah, and if like a lot of the work we do, like especially in the Moonwise membership, is about being okay with change. Like I was going to say comfortable, but that is, you know, that's a big ask. It's like for any mortal, being comfortable with change, because, you know, inevitably change is moving us closer to the final change kind of thing, you know. Sorry to be a bit morbid on you. Like I said, Pluto is very close to my ascendant. So we can be, and that's the whole point of knowing about the astrology as well, isn't it? It's like there's no point in like listening to these forecasts if we're not going to be open to what is going on. So yeah, expect the unexpected, be open to change. And also, like, you know, we are most of us here are also witches, you know, so we get to use this energy as well. We get to work with this energy so that we can influence things. And so when you're in a stage of Uranus retrograde, you know, we could have some quite surprising results. I mean, like Uranus, just working with Uranus in general is surprising, but when a planet stations, you know, so at that kind of period of time when it is really, really slow and it just is kind of like hanging in the sky, it is like at its most strong. So yeah, working with that Uranus energy to bring change as well, you know, we can kind of lean into that as well. Yeah. Oh, no worries, Megan. I know sometimes a live can be a little bit more like that, I think, when, you know, like buffering and stuff. So yeah, Uranus going retrograde in Taurus. And that is going to be the case. When does it go direct? I'll have a look. For a long, you know, it's going to be retrograde for a while. Let's have a look. I feel like until the whole rest of the year, but it might be... Yeah, January until until the end of January, basically, until the end of January 2025. So that's one of the reasons, again, you know, that I'm saying that this month, September, is kind of setting up these longer term patterns that we're going to be in now, that energy we're going to be in now until the end of the year. Yeah. Hey, Nicole. So is it stable enough to do workings for a positive change, like a job opportunity? Yeah. Yeah. Like, what do you mean? Like, Uranus is never stable. It's always like erratic, but that doesn't mean that we can't give it, you know, like we can take a punt, we can have a go with it. And like I say, you can get some really surprising results with it as well. Oh, how far back does it go? Yeah, sorry, I should have said that. Where is it going? It hardly at all. Like, it just hangs around for ages. So let me have a look where it is in January. Oh, these are the things that it's like. So in November, it goes, 25, 24, 23, 23. I think 23 is 23 Taurus is the furthest back it goes. And then it stations direct on the 31st of January. So, you know, it's only those few degrees between 23 and 27 Taurus that is going over again. Yeah, exactly, Cajun. That's how I feel about it as well. The fact that it's more erratic means there's opportunity from unexpected directions. Exactly. You know, like, we can be scared by this stuff and sort of like try and protect ourselves from it, but that's not my preferred approach. Definitely, you know, like, we're supposed to be here. Goddess wants us to embrace this stuff, you know, like, embrace this knowledge, these kind of mysteries that people kind of disregard as like pseudoscience and stuff now, and actually work with this energy. Definitely. Yeah. Uranus looks like the Enterprise, a starship flying through, shaking and waking up the world. Yes. Yeah. So that's those few degrees. Yeah, if you've got planets in those few degrees of Taurus, then obviously this Uranus is going to affect you even more strongly. Or if you've got planets opposite it or squaring it even, you know, then you'll definitely notice that. But I feel like we're all going to notice it as well, you know. We might see it is like the unexpected kind of situation, especially well, really, yeah, like for that whole rest of the year, you know. Surprising things to do with land, to do with resources, to do with all those Taurus stuff. Also, like, we can make surprising changes in our physical bodies as well at this time, you know. So like, if you're gonna, like, I don't know, decide you are going to lose a big amount of weight or gain a big amount of weight, or like bulk up, or, you know, surprising changes in physical form. So whether that's our physical bodies, or whether it is in land, you know, there is more likelihood as well of seeing things like earthquakes, landslips, things like that, you know, when Uranus is prominent as well. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Things that coming from unexpected directions. That's kind of what I was trying to get at with the like the indirect energy kind of like bouncing off different stuff, you know, like how sort like energy doesn't always travel in a predictable way, kind of thing. Yeah. So, oh yeah, and then the other reason why I think that this month is kind of setting the tone really for what is coming for the rest of the year is Mars. So Mars is going to be going into Cancer on the 4th, so really early in the month. And like, Mars is not very happy in Cancer. It's a sign of the moon, and like, when we think of the moon, it's kind of very kind of like moist and dark, and Mars is very like hot and direct, and so the energy of those things are very opposite to each other. And so Mars in Cancer can be like a little bit sometimes steamy. You know, when we think of like hot and wet coming together, then that can be like kind of passionate, steamy, but also like it can be a little bit like too hot, or like it stirs up. Like, Cancer is also to do with like our home and our sense of like safety, our sense of security. So when we get like Mars coming in there, it can stir up that area of our lives, you know. And again, you know, like layer this into your own chart as well. So you think, okay, what is that house that is happening in? So for me, that's 10th house. So that is to do more with like my career and things like that. So if with Mars coming in there, it's going to make me probably like more ambitious perhaps, but also, like I say, because Mars is in detriment there, it might like, it just might not be the sort of like nicest energy. So like again, I'm just gonna be mindful of that and look for ways in which we can use it. So again, like I already had one, like when we think of Mars going into an area of our chart like that, it's like, okay, I can be more ambitious. And like for me, my whole business is around teaching people about working with the moon, you know. So like, and like there's no surprise that my 10th house is Cancer, and that is like literally the moon ruled by the moon. So like Mars coming in there could make me want to be able to, you know, to have the energy, because Mars is also a very energetic planet. So it's going to give me more energy maybe to talk about my business and to be more ambitious, you know, be less scared. Mars is very courageous as well, you know, so it's not going to want me to hold back about those kind of things. So that is what, you know, that is what I'm just modeling that as what you can do with this information as well. So you can sort of think, okay, Mars is going into Cancer, which is my, you know, whatever house it is for you. Perhaps if it was your 7th house, you know, it's in that house of relationships. So it could make you, like if you're not in a relationship and you want to be in one, like Mars going in there could make you be more assertive, like looking for a relationship. Use more of that like outgoing kind of, I was going to say a masculine energy, you know, in that kind of stereotype masculine energy, out pushing way to connect with a partner. It might also mean that you would find a partner who's kind of like a bit Mars like in nature, but you actually find it really passionate and really steamy, you know, and what you want. So this stuff is to empower us, not to disempower us, for sure. Oh, no worries, Candy. It's nice to see you. Hopefully see you soon. So, and Mars is in Cancer for the whole of September. I've made a note of these. Stays in Cancer until November, until the 5th of November, when it goes into Leo. It starts to retrograde when it's in Leo, goes back into Cancer in January 2025. Don't worry if you're not following all of this, because I'm going to sum it all up at the end. And that is now. So basically, Mars is only in 2 signs, so in 2 houses of your chart, if you're doing whole sign houses, for the whole rest of this year, up until June of 2025. It doesn't go into Virgo until June 2025. So like the rest of this year is mainly like Mars in Cancer, and it does go into Leo, like I said, and then it retrogrades back in. Yes, and Mars is a bunch of our Time Lords, it is. And it's also when I like to do my solar return chart, and I've got a Scorpio rising solar return chart, so it is my chart ruler as well at the moment, you know. If you don't use solar return charts, don't worry about that, but that's another kind of layer as well to put that in. Oh, thanks, Michelle. Oh, hey, Siren. Oh, wow, that's very Mars of you working out as well. So yeah, Mars, and if Mars is your chart ruler, or is significant in your chart in general, then that's like Mars likes to move fast, and usually does move fairly fast through all the different signs, you know. Like it takes about 18 months usually for Mars to make a whole lap through all of the zodiac. So the fact that Mars is like hanging around in these 2 signs for such a protracted period of time is really interesting. And I feel like it's bringing that kind of Mars sometimes is a little bit misunderstood, and like we see it as being this kind of like aggressive, hot, spicy planet, which it is. But Mars, like when we think about Mars, it's exalted in Capricorn, you know. It's also strategic. It can also do delayed gratification if the payoff is going to be good, you know. So when Mars is like hanging around for a while, I feel like it gives it more of that ability to be more strategic, give it more longevity, give it more gravitas as well. So that is interesting, I think. So definitely like look at your own chart and see like where this is happening for you. But again, you know, that's a third kind of indicator that this month, that September, is giving us a kind of like a taster of what is in store for us for the whole rest of this year, and like I say, also into next year as well, because it's got that kind of feel for it going through the year. So that was all point one of the things you needed to know about this month. But it is the biggest point, so it's not going to take that long for me to go through all the different ones. But yeah, that is the kind of, this month is setting us up for the rest of the year. And like I said, if you want to more like blow by blow and like know when all of these transits and things are happening with interpretation, then the blog post, which I've linked below in the description, is the place for that. And it's also got like little horoscopes as well for your sign. So yeah, I'm not going to go into details because we would literally be here. Yes, that is point one. That was point one. The other two are definitely shorter. So point two that I wanted to talk about as well is that we've also got this kind of like energy of self and other that has been happening with the nodes being in Libra and Aries. So we've had the nodes in Libra and Aries now for like 18 months or so, if I'm remembering correctly. So the nodes tend to spend about sort of that long, up to 2 years, like in a pair of signs. They're always opposite each other because they're not actually they don't actually exist in physical form. They're just the points at which the it's kind of like a mathematical point, basically, to do with how where the sun and the moon cross over each other. But the nodes are very, very interesting in the chart, especially if you're into like evolutionary astrology. You can kind of use those to find out lots of things about yourself, about why you're here, about your past lives and things like that. But they've been hanging around in this whole like Libra Aries axis for a while now, and that has been calling us into having finding the balance between our own self and others. And I feel like it's been a lot of it has been around boundaries around those things as well. You know, it's like, this is me, this is my stuff, this is you, and that is your stuff. And you know, yes, we're in connection, we're in relationship, but it's also important that we have this kind of, oh sorry, my neighbour's mowing his lawn. I hope it's not too loud, and it does take a little while to do it. He's very proud of his lawn. He's lovely. And so we've been finding that balance between those things. Well, in September, we have a partial eclipse, and it is in Pisces. So we've got a full moon eclipse in Pisces. And so that is the sort of first eclipse that is moving us a little bit away from that Libra and Aries nodal axis. I'll explain the details of it in a second, but yeah, I just kind of just follow the general arc of where I'm going, hopefully, with this now. So the nodes haven't moved. They're still in, well, they're moving a little bit all the time, but they're still in Libra and Aries. But because the full moon is kind of falling close to the boundary, and it's about a 15-degree orb for an eclipse. So because the full moon is kind of close-ish to where the node is, it's a partial eclipse. It will be like hardly eclipsed at all, like from a visible perspective. But that's kind of shifting things a little bit. It's giving us a taster again, you know. So this kind of could be like 0.1, 0.5, I suppose, or 1b. It's given us a little taster of what is going to happen. We have got another Aries Libra eclipse season happening at the end of March 2025. We'll have like our last, I think we've got an Aries eclipse happening in March. But then the nodes are going to shift, and we are going to start having them in Pisces and Virgo instead. So there's a start of a shift happening. So it'd be really useful to look at what that axis is in your chart. Like for me, it's the same, because I'm Libra rising. If you're Libra rising, that means that you will have that, you've already got that 1-7 houses being pinged by these nodes where they are at the moment. But if you can look as well where the Pisces Virgo axis is falling, and for me that's the 6th house and the 12th house. So I'm going to be starting to look more at like kind of like physical and emotional health, also like spirituality, things like that. And this this full moon, like partial eclipse in Pisces, is going to be like a kind of a gate opening for it's going to give us a little glimpse, I think, of the stuff that is happening, that's going to be happening as we move in. Oh, thanks, Liz. Yeah, solar eclipse in Aries in March 2025. And I think that is the last one. I think that's our last Aries eclipse then before the nodes do shift signs, and we start to have them in Pisces and Virgo then. So yeah, Venus, there's also lots of nodal activity. So like this 0.2 or 0.1.1b or whatever this is, is to do with the nodes in general, because they are getting quite a bit of activity in September. So again, like I said, the nodes do have that, they're not a physical thing. And so they kind of have like a more esoteric vibe to them already, and so we tend to feel nodal stuff less on a physical level and more on a spiritual level, I suppose. You know, like that nodal stuff tends to show up in our lives more on a spiritual level. So we've got Venus conjunct the South Node, so you know that's kicking up some stuff. The North Node is sometimes called like Rahu, the head of the dragon, and then we've got the South Node, which is the tail of the dragon or the arse of the dragon, depending on how crass you want to be. And so like the North Node is like where the energy enters into the universe, and the South Node is where it kind of gets pooped out, you know. So the North Node is often about bringing things into our lives, and the South Node is often about letting things go. So when we have like a Venus in her own sign of Libra conjunct that South Node, then it suggests a kind of a beautiful release in a way, you know. So if there is something that you are, and like we've had this learning with the nodes being in those two signs for quite a long period of time now, we've learned about those idea of boundaries of self and other. And if you've got something that you want to be releasing, then when, you know, that time when Venus and that South Node conjunction happens could be a really lovely time to do it. You could even design like a beautiful ritual around that, where you could honor the learning, you know, or whatever it is that is being released now, and then let it go beautifully. So yeah, we've got Venus conjunct the South Node, and we've also got the Sun and Mercury also interacting with the nodes as well. So, you know, when the Sun interacts with the nodes, then that tends to kick up our vital force. Sometimes when the Sun is like interacting with the nodes, it can be like a low energy day. Sometimes it can be a high energy day. When we have Mercury interacting with the nodes, then it can be really, it's like with Mercury with the South Node, or with the North Node actually, I find that it's really, really good for divination, you know. So those nodal, the nodes are emphasized in this month. So we used to say month now, but no, we're talking about September. It is the month. And this is the Venus node conjunction is the day after the new moon. Yes, yeah. So, you know, and it's within orb, isn't it? Before the new moon. So if you wanted to do it then, that would be, you know, even the moon is also facilitating release at that time. So, you know, you could shift that around a little bit. Like that's one of the nice things about knowing the astrology, is it means we can time our magic really beautifully and get amplified results, you know, easier results. It's like adding a like kind of an accelerator into the mix when we're doing our magic around those times. Yeah. And also the full moon as well is kind of, because there's a very Neptunian influence around that full moon, and that Pisces, you know, because the nodes are starting to affect Pisces, even though they're not in Pisces yet. We've got that Neptunian nodal Pisces, and Pisces is already that kind of karmic energy. So that is something that is like, yeah, I feel like there's going to be a lot of inspiration coming through this month, and a lot of, if we want it, there's a lot of opportunity for us to do release in a really kind of like creative and loving way, rather than that kind of, and like Mars is obviously in Cancer as well, so like there's not going to be like the cutting away, the pruning. Like we've had periods of time where that has been happening, where we've been having that like hard pruning, painful cutting. This is more about like a kind of loving release. And yes, there may well be grief around that as well. You know, like when we're letting go of anything, then grief is actually, you know, like people, because we're like not supposed to cry or share our feelings in public often in Western civilization in general. Grief has become kind of like a non-appropriate emotion, but it's so appropriate. Like when we're letting go of something, grief and like I love how not even that long ago, in lots of societies, grief was something that was understood much more, and like people would get really vocal with their grief. You know, we'd have things like in Ireland, like with people keening and things like that with their grief, you know, so letting it come out in a really vocal, visceral way, because that's cathartic, you know, it helps us to clear this stuff out. And so this month, with all the nodal stuff that is going on, has got that opportunity for like a catharsis, a beautiful release. Could be grief, you know, there could be some grief definitely along with it. There should be probably some grief along with it. We are not the same people as we are now, as we were before, you know. And yeah, I suppose this goes back as well to what we talked about right at the very start, when I was talking about the idea of this year kind of like sanding us into our polished form, or like being that bit of sea glass that has been sanded into its treasure, you know. That is the work of this month. So that was point 2 or 1B. And then the third thing is that there's quite a few planets, maybe not loads, quite a few in their own signs. So like Mars isn't, but we have got Mercury in Virgo this month. We've also got the Sun in Libra. So and like Pisces is in Neptune. Pisces is in Neptune. Neptune is in Pisces. It does help if you say it the right way around. So I feel like there's some, like when the planets are in their own signs, when they're at home, it helps us to feel more at home as well. So I feel like this month as well, like point 3 is about getting more at home in our bodies. And this could connect in as well with that idea of Pluto going back into Capricorn as well, and doing that last dip about being more settled in ourselves, being more centered in ourselves, being stronger as well, like connecting in with that strengthier idea. So yeah, we have got that. And so point 3 is very short, really. It's just that when planets are in their own signs, especially if those planets are prominent in your own chart, like for me, whenever I see Libra going into Venus going into Libra, I love that. And I think that also eases that Uranus retrograde as well, because Venus's other sign is Taurus. So when Venus is strong in her own sign of Libra, then naturally that Taurus place is also going to be kind of strengthened as well. So yeah, there's some really interesting astrology happening in this month. And like I said, if you want the kind of like detailed account of that, then find the link in the description. You can go there and look at that. And also, if you're interested in learning more about how astrology connects in with your own natal chart, then I have got a course that I'm going to be doing in October. I'm so excited about it. It's going to be like a very small bunch of people first of all, for this first run of it, because I want to make sure that it is amazing. I'm a little bit worried that I'm trying to squeeze too much stuff into it, because it's kind of like the whole first year of what they teach on a lot of the diploma programs. So I'm not sure yet exactly how long it's going to take, but it's basically going to take as long as it takes. And I'm going to make sure that everyone who is part of it is going to get everything they need to really understand their own chart, and to be able to use that information to understand themselves and why they're here and what their gifts are, you know, so they can share those gifts. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. Let's get some cards on the go. I've got my Oak, Ash and Thorn tarot here. Let me move to make a little bit of space so I can shuffle. I did give him a little shuffle before I started. Teaches the things, yeah. So we're going to learn all the things. We're going to be going through all the things. And like, I know lots of you already know quite a lot of the things as well already, but I'm hopeful that I'm going to be able to bring it together in a way that makes it just so much more useful, because it's like it's practical astrology, applied astrology, so that we can use it to improve our lives, you know. Otherwise it's just kind of like a study for, like, it's interesting, it is an interesting study, but still I'd like it to be more useful. Okay, so I'm going to take 2 cards, that feels right, to see how that kind of sits in with what we've been talking about already. Be interesting if the Strength card comes out, or even the Death card, I suppose, with the Pluto stuff that is going on. Okay, that feels good. Oh, wow. Okay, so we have the 8 of Wands, and we've got this fox looking up at this gorgeous, like, wheel of light, wheel of sun. Like, 8 of Wands is that fiery energy. Interesting as well, like, we've talked about Mars in Cancer, and like how that fiery energy of Mars is sometimes not sitting well in Cancer, but and 8 of Wands is a very Mars card in a lot of ways, because it's about kind of like charging in and getting the exciting stuff done and kind of doing that. But look how in this card, it isn't, like, quite often in the cards, it's got the wands kind of like shooting off in a certain direction, or all kind of like movement happening in one way. But here, they're all coming together to make this kind of gorgeous sun. And so it's like, instead of shooting the energy off and out, it's like concentrating the energy in that space. So I feel like this card is showing us a way that we can work with that that like Mars in Cancer energy. And yeah, I think, like, using it as a form of concentrating that power, and then we can, like, it's a bit like, you know, like when you in like kind of like coven spaces, if you're working with other people, where we can like kind of build the power, build a cone of power, and then you send it off to the place where you want it to go. So you build it first, and that's what that Mars in Cancer is going to be. Yeah, Michelle's I love this card's interpretation. Okay, so she did send me the book for these cards, but for some reason the format that it was in just didn't want to work on my computer, so I haven't actually read any of her interpretations of the cards, which is really annoying. I wish it was just like a PDF or something. I think that would be easier, but it's like it was in like a weird format that I could not, like, it's supposed to be really pretty, I think, that you can like flick through it, but yeah, for me, it just didn't really work that well. So I would be interested, maybe post it in the Discord, Michelle, if you don't mind, the actual energy synergy. Is that what it says for the 8 of Wands? I've got the little one, actually, you know, like the little one that comes in with the card, so I should have looked on that. But yeah, I like to just go with my own interpretation on this, and I feel like it's saying that, yeah, that kind of concentrated Mars in Cancer energy, we can work with that firepower, we can work with that inspiration, that kind of spiritual and creative spark, focus that energy, focus it. And we've got, you know, we're in Virgo season, so we're already all about kind of like planning all the things for the end of the year, so we can focus our energy and use that to inform how we close out this year and go into the next as well. Yeah. Oh, that's your takeaway from it, Michelle. Okay. Yeah. Oh, you think you've got the PDF? That would be amazing. I could have a look at that. And look at the other card that has come out, which is, I feel like these cards, when we were doing some polls over in the Discord as well, I've got a feeling these cards might have come out together for somebody. Maybe it was you, Shannon, before. We've got the World. Yeah, and we've got that gorgeous energy of this card always reminds me of the story of the mother deer, who, like, at the solstice, at the winter solstice, where she like carries the sun on her antlers and like literally carries the sun into the next year, you know. It's really beautiful. Oh, Kate, it was you, Kate. Okay, yeah, with these 2 cards together. And look how the World is like, it's so tiny, and it's like the mother giving the world to her young, you know, so passing it on, passing on the world, passing on the light. And It's funny because I talked about this month having that energy of endings and beginnings, and it really does. With that Pluto dropping back into Capricorn, we've got that kind of finishing off kind of energy. We've got that Uranus retrograde. Like, that's why I talked about that point one for such a long time, because that's all about the kind of endings and beginnings, how this month is like setting up for the rest of the year, but that rest of the year is a kind of ending in a sense of that energy. Oh, just realized as well that Eight of Wands is also, it is an 8, so it's resonating with that strength card energy, that 8 major energy as well. Oh, I love that. An earth keeper for the next generation. Yeah, that is so beautiful. Oh, if you if I flick through the book and go to the full screen, you download the PDF. Oh, amazing. I'll have to try and do that. I just couldn't get it to open. It was really annoying. I was like, I want to read this and see this, but yeah, I'll have to try again. I think I just got like frustrated trying to do it quickly and then didn't carry on. Yeah, such beautiful pair of cards to go with. I'll share these over in the Discord as well, so that we've got them there to have to kind of refer back to for the energy of September. That concentrated power, and then that idea of we now are, like I've talked about this before, that I feel like we really are the midwives of this end of epoch that we're in now, this kind of like crumbling civilization in a lot of ways that we're in now. And we are going to be part of birthing something new and passing it on. And so the work that we're doing here to close things out and to do that kind of that personal work, that work on ourselves, that kind of clearing out of ourselves so as we become better channels, that smoothing of ourselves so that we become that brighter version of ourselves, that is the work, and that is how we are going to birth this new world into existence. The clouds behind the mother also remind me of the movement of the 8 of... Oh, yes. Yeah, it looks very like swept out to the one way as well. I love how it's dark as well. Like, a lot of world cards are very bright, aren't they? So it's like, it's a much more intimate, cozy kind of take on the world. Yeah, you know, like sometimes the world card can feel almost like too big, too impersonal. And this one doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's, I mean, it's got that energy, obviously that world energy with all those stars in the background as well. But it just seems so much more personal. And like, that's how you do feel. That's how I feel about my children. I want to pass on things to them. And I want this world to be a more loving place for them moving forward. And that you know, filling up thinking about it, but that is tough at the moment. But I think like that Uranus in Taurus kicking things up, unexpected things, we can do that work. We have to do that work. Okay, let's take an oracle as well. Oosh, big cards coming out. And like in some ways this month is like less frantic than some of the months that we've already had in this year. The astrology's been strange this year. Well, since 2020, the astrology's been strange. Like when you've been following it for a long time, you sort of see, you know, you're like, oh, I've never seen that before, and I've never seen that before. Oh, so people like coming into astrology now, it must be really like, it's not normally like this. It's not normally quite as intense as it has been over the last few years. Yeah, but then like, let's embrace frantic. So Shannon's saying we'll take less frantic. And yes, like I want a little bit of coziness, especially when we think of like Mars going into Cancer, like that can stir up things in like our home life and stuff like that. But let's think about that Uranus energy as well, and how we can use this kind of spicy energy to our advantage, you know? We can do that. So this is from the Witch Oracle. I've got the like special edition that I was sent by a beautiful friend. Okay, so we have got number 2, the Story Keeper, and we have got this person kind of sat in a tree with the moon, the full moon, it looks like behind her, with her book, and she's just kind of like looking off into the darkness. In fact, it looks, you know, like if you saw these cards together. She could almost be looking at, looking at this scene. So I feel like this tying in with that idea of the world, that idea of the world order. Like when you are a story keeper, that is one of the things. Like before I was Jessica and the Moon on YouTube, I used to be the story witch, because keeping the stories, passing them on, that is what, and that is what she's doing here, isn't it? That is what is happening in this card, is we pass on these stories, we pass on our wisdom, we pass on that which is true and good, that is which is real for us. And with the way things are a lot now, the things that are getting passed on, well, are mostly memes, but like how certain things are like, there's so much stuff just everywhere, like proliferation of information and stuff like everywhere. You can find things in instants in different places. So if we can kind of like distance ourselves a little bit from that and kind of think about what are the core stories that feel true to us, that are true to us, that we want to be curating, passing on, to bring that new that is coming forward now, to set it up in the right place, because our stories are what frame our reality. The things that we believe are what frames our reality. So those stories are critical. That is why, like when dictators come into power, they burn books, because that is what frames, like how women are still suffering from that Adam and Eve story all over the world now, in places that people don't even think of as being Christian anymore. Stories are powerful, so powerful. Let's read what it says in here, because I love the interpretations that come in this book. Okay. You are made of moonlight and stories. The night and the trees know this, which is why when you need a change in your narrative, you would do well to seek their counsel. So yeah, go into the night, go into the moon, go into the trees, instead of going to like Facebook. Some stories lift us up and encourage our potential, our inherent magic. Other stories limit, diminish, or destroy our worth. You are being asked right now to consider which stories you are listening to and which ones you are telling. Telling yourself a story of empowerment will bring a surge of energy to you. Yes. Notice how your shoulders drop, your breath deepens, your heart warms. Telling yourself a story of scarcity or disempowerment leaves you tight, small, and cramped. While we are very selective about the books we read and the stories we watch on film, we are far less selective about the stories we tell ourselves. Now is the time to question the narratives you're allowing into the ear of your spirit. Are they helpful or hurtful? A witch, a woman in total control of herself, acknowledges her stories of lack and frustration, and she chooses to focus on the ones that nurture her vitality. Yeah, amazing. So what is it that we are passing on? What is it that is true to us, is real to us? It goes back as well, like when we're journaling, when we're in the Moonwise membership, when we're setting up our journals, I always want to consider my input. What is it that I'm taking in? Because the things that I'm taking in obviously influence what is coming out, which makes me think of the nodes as well. Like we talked about the nodes, how it's the energy coming into the universe, the energy coming out of the universe. This month is very nodal, and so that idea of beginnings and endings, of what we are passing on, of what is true and real, is so crucial, so critical in this month. Yeah. Okay, so this deck is Woman in Total Control of Herself by this is the collector's edition though, so not all of the cards are in the non-collector's edition. I don't think you can get the collector's edition anymore. It's by Angie Sullins, and the cards are all kind of dark, but it's a really powerful deck. I do really love it. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, woman in total control of herself, and there's like a song. I'm a woman in total control of herself. Yeah. So I'll probably leave you with that. we'll take the chat over to the Discord, and I'll put the pictures and things of that over there. I hope that that was useful. And like I say, do look at the blog post as well if you want like the more in-depth detail. And if you want it like in more manageable chunks, then the Moonday Magic Mail is the place to get that, because it's like every week, just the things that are happening that week, nicely curated. I love it. I like write it, and then on the Monday it comes to me on my inbox as well, and I'm like, brilliant. Which probably sounds really like, that's very Leo season of me. I shouldn't still be in that now, but yeah, it's like, no, this is good. This is good. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm feeling the spider webs tying in. Like that literally does link so much. Like I don't want to talk too much about the membership stuff in a non-member video, but yeah, we are working with Grandmother Spider, and that idea of creativity of the webs that we weave, you know, that weaving of story threads is so integral to that, to working with Grandmother Spider. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for being here. It's been wonderful to spend some time with you, to share space with you. Warmest blessings, and I will see you very soon. I will see you very soon in the Discord.